When referees become fighters, combat sports officials lost control, explained. Hello, friends. We are watching a fight, the crowd is going wild, and suddenly the referee throws a punch, not to break up the fighters, but to knock one of them out cold. This actually happened multiple times. And today, we're diving into the most insane moments when referees stopped being peacekeepers and became the main event themselves. By the end of this video, you'll see why being a referee might actually be the most dangerous job in fighting. So buckle up, because we're about to explore the dark side of officiating, where the men in charge became the men throwing bombs. The granddaddy of all referee fights, Mills Lane versus the world. Let's start with a legend. Mills Lane wasn't just any referee. This guy was a former boxer who became the most famous ref in combat sports history. Let's get it on wasn't just his catchphrase, it was a warning. But here's what most people don't know. Mills Lane actually fought professionally before he became a referee. 22 professional fights, and the man knew how to throw hands. So, when things got heated in his ring, fighters knew they weren't dealing with some pencil-pushing official. The most famous incident? 1997, Evander Holyfield versus Mike Tyson 2. When Tyson bit Holyfield's ear, Lane didn't just stop the fight. He got right in Tyson's face, like he was ready to throw down himself. The look in his eyes said everything. Try me, Mike. I dare you. Lane once said, I've been hit by better men than you. And he meant it. This wasn't some keyboard warrior referee. This was a guy who could back up his authority with his fists, if needed. The bare-knuckle chaos, when rules don't exist. Now let's talk about bare-knuckle boxing, where referees fighting isn't just possible, it's practically expected. These underground circuits operate on different rules, and sometimes the ref is just another guy who can throw hands. In 2019, at a bare-knuckle event in Wyoming, referee Tony Weeks, not the famous Tony Weeks, but a local guy with the same name, ended up in a three-way brawl when both fighters turned on him after a controversial stoppage. The crowd went absolutely mental. One fighter thought the stoppage was early, the other thought it was late, and they both decided the ref was the problem. What happened next was pure chaos. Weeks, who apparently had some amateur boxing background, started swinging back. For about 30 seconds, it wasn't a boxing match. It was a street fight with three guys throwing bombs in a ring while the crowd lost their minds. The craziest part? The commission reviewed the footage and decided Weeks acted in self-defense. He kept his license and continued refereeing. Only in bare-knuckle boxing, folks. The Olympic incident that shocked the world. Seoul, 1988. Boxing at the Olympics is supposed to be the pinnacle of amateur boxing. Clean, fair, and professional. Tell that to referee Keith Walker from New Zealand. During the light middleweight bout between South Korea's Park Si-hun and American Roy Jones Jr., the crowd was already heated. Jones was clearly winning, and I mean clearly. He outlanded Park 86-32 in punches. But when the judges gave the decision to Park, all hell broke loose. Walker, who had been getting pressured by Korean officials all tournament, finally snapped when Jones's corner started protesting. What should have been a simple announcement turned into Walker shoving Jones's trainer, then throwing a right hand that connected clean. The footage is grainy, but you can see Walker, this middle-aged New Zealand referee, throwing hands with a professional boxing trainer while Roy Jones Jr., one of the greatest boxers of all time, just stands there in shock. The aftermath was brutal. Walker was banned from international competition. The decision stood somehow, and Roy Jones Jr. got robbed of Olympic gold. But Walker, he went down in history as the referee who threw the most expensive punch in Olympic boxing, the Russian Sambo referee who became a legend. Sambo isn't as well known in the West, but in Russia it's serious business. And Russian referees, they don't mess around. Viktor Spiridonov was refereeing a Sambo championship in Moscow in 2003 when both fighters started arguing with his calls. In Sambo, respect for the referee is everything. It's built into the martial arts philosophy. So when these two fighters started getting disrespectful, Spiridonov did what any self-respecting Russian would do. He challenged them both to a match, right there, on the spot. Now, here's the thing about Spiridonov. He was 58 years old at the time, but he was also a former Soviet Sambo champion. These young fighters thought they were dealing with some old man in a referee shirt. They were wrong. Spiridonov took on both fighters, one after the other, and submitted them both. The first guy tapped to a leg lock in under a minute. The second lasted about 90 seconds before getting choked out. The crowd went absolutely insane. This wasn't just a referee asserting authority. This was a master showing students why respect matters. The video went viral in Russia before YouTube was even big, and Spiridonov became a folk hero. The Muay Thai referee who stopped a riot. Thailand, 2001, Lumpinee Stadium. If you know Muay Thai, you know this is sacred ground. The referee was Kru Somchai, a former fighter turned official who commanded massive respect. During a particularly heated bout between two rising stars, the crowd started getting restless. Bad calls, questionable scoring, and way too much money on the line. When one fighter got knocked down by what looked like a slip, but was ruled a knockdown, his corner exploded. The fighter's trainer jumped into the ring, followed by about 6 other guys from his camp. Then the other fighters' people jumped in. Within seconds, you had about 15 people throwing hands in the ring while thousands of spectators were going crazy. Kru Somchai, who was maybe 5 feet 6 inches and 140 pounds soaking wet, did something incredible. He started throwing elbows and knees like he was still fighting professionally. But here's the beautiful part. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was using traditional Muay Thai clinch work to separate people and restore order. For about 3 minutes, this tiny referee was controlling a riot using pure technique. Elbow strikes to create space, knee strikes to the body to wind people, and clinch work to tie up the most aggressive fighters. It was like watching a martial arts movie, except it was real. When the dust settled, Somchai had restored order without seriously injuring anyone. The Thai Boxing Commission gave him a medal. The fighters, they were so embarrassed. They both retired from competition. The underground MMA referee who became a fighter. This story comes from the early days of MMA, before athletic commissions really knew what they were dealing with. 2004, somewhere in rural Pennsylvania, an underground MMA event where the rules were more like suggestions. The referee was a guy named Big Jim Morrison. Not the Doors singer, obviously, but a 6'4" former bouncer who got into refereeing because he needed the money. Jim had never trained formally, but he'd been in enough bar fights to know how to handle himself. During the main event, one fighter started complaining about every call. Illegal strikes, early stoppages, late stoppages, nothing was right. Finally, after Jim stopped the fight due to a clear submission, the fighter got up and shoved him. Big mistake. Jim Morrison, all 250 pounds of him, grabbed this fighter and threw him across the cage like a rag doll. But instead of stopping there, he did something unprecedented. He challenged the guy to a fight, right then and there. The promoter, seeing dollar signs, immediately made it official. They cleared the cage, rang the bell, and suddenly the referee was the main event. What followed was 3 rounds of the most technically awful but entertaining MMA you've ever seen. Morrison had no formal training, but was tough as nails. The other guy was skilled, but completely rattled by the situation. Morrison won by technical knockout in the 3rd round when the other fighter just gave up. The crowd went nuts. Morrison got paid double, referee fee plus fight purse, and he immediately retired from both refereeing and fighting. The best part? The whole thing was caught on camera and became one of the first viral MMA videos on the early internet. The boxing referee who knocked out a fighter. Liverpool, England, 1923. This is old school boxing when referees were often former fighters themselves and didn't take any nonsense. Referee Tommy Burns, yes, the same Tommy Burns who was a former heavyweight champion, was officiating a bout between 2 local fighters. One of the fighters, clearly losing, started getting dirty. Low blows, holding, hitting behind the head, all the classics. Burns warned him multiple times, but the fighter kept it up. Finally, after a particularly blatant low blow, Burns had enough. He stepped between the fighters to issue a warning, and the dirty fighter took a swing at him. Burns, being a former heavyweight champion, did what came naturally. He threw a perfect right cross that dropped the fighter like a sack of potatoes. Clean knockout. The fighter was out cold for about 2 minutes, and when he woke up, Burns disqualified him for unsportsmanlike conduct and attacking the referee. The other fighter was declared the winner, and Burns continued officiating like nothing happened. The Boxing Commission reviewed the incident and decided Burns acted appropriately. Different times, folks. The modern MMA referee who almost became a fighter. Fast forward to 2018, a regional MMA event in Texas. The The referee was a guy named Marcus Thompson, a former amateur wrestler who'd been officiating for about 5 years. During a particularly heated bout, one fighter got submitted but refused to tap. Thompson jumped in to stop the fight, but the fighter who got submitted was convinced it was an early stoppage. He got up and started screaming at Thompson, getting right in his face. Thompson, trying to de-escalate, kept backing up and telling the fighter to calm down. But the fighter kept advancing and eventually shoved Thompson hard enough to knock him down. Here's where it gets interesting. Thompson got up, and for a split second, you could see him calculating whether to throw hands. He was a wrestler, he was in good shape, and this fighter had just assaulted him in front of hundreds of people. But instead of fighting, Thompson did something brilliant. He looked at the fighter and said, "You want to settle this? Fine, but we do it right. You, me, 3 rounds, sanctioned bout, next month." The crowd went absolutely insane. The fighter, caught off guard, actually agreed. The promoter immediately started making plans for the bout. But here's the twist. The Athletic Commission stepped in and shut it down. They suspended both Thompson and the fighter, and Thompson lost his referee license. The fighter later apologized publicly and said he was just heated from the loss. Thompson accepted the apology, but he never got his license back. He now trains fighters full-time and says he's happier for it. The karate tournament referee who ended a career, All Japan Karate Championships, 1987. Traditional karate, where control and respect are everything. The referee was Sensei Nakamura, a 7th Dan black belt who'd been competing and officiating for over 30 years. During the final bout, one competitor started getting frustrated with the scoring. In traditional karate, points are awarded for controlled techniques that demonstrate skill without causing damage. This fighter wanted to turn it into a brawl. After several warnings, the fighter threw a full power punch directly at his opponent's head, a move that's completely against the rules and extremely dangerous. Nakamura immediately stepped in to stop the technique, but the fighter redirected his punch toward the referee. Nakamura, with decades of training, simply stepped aside and threw a perfect counterpunch that dropped the fighter instantly. It was textbook karate, minimal force, maximum effect, perfect technique. The fighter was knocked out cold and had to be carried out on a stretcher. When he woke up in the hospital, he found out he'd been banned from competition for life, not just for attacking the referee, but for bringing dishonor to the art. Nakamura continued officiating for another 15 years and became one of the most respected referees in traditional martial arts. The fighter? He never competed again and eventually left martial arts entirely. The wrestling referee who became a legend. High School Wrestling, Iowa, 1995. If you know wrestling, you know Iowa takes it seriously. The referee was Coach Peterson, who'd been wrestling and coaching for over 20 years. During the state championship finals, one wrestler's father started getting out of control in the stands, screaming at the referee, questioning every call, making threats. Finally, he jumped out of the stands and onto the mat, getting in Peterson's face. Peterson, being from Iowa and having dealt with wrestling parents for decades, wasn't having it. He looked at the guy and said, "You think you can do better? Let's go." The father, who apparently had wrestled in college, actually took off his jacket and got into a wrestling stance. Peterson, still in his referee shirt, did the same. What followed was about 30 seconds of legitimate wrestling in front of a packed gymnasium. Peterson, despite being in his 50s, took the guy down and pinned him in front of his own son and about 2,000 spectators. The crowd gave Peterson a standing ovation. The father was arrested and banned from all future wrestling events. Peterson finished officiating the match like nothing happened. The Iowa Wrestling Association gave Peterson an award for maintaining the integrity of the sport. The father's son, embarrassed by his dad's behavior, went on to have a successful college wrestling career and always credited Peterson with teaching him about respect and sportsmanship, the unsung heroes. Here's something most fans don't think about. Referees put themselves in harm's way every single time they step into that ring or cage. They're standing inches away from trained killers, throwing bombs at each other, and sometimes those bombs go astray. Think about it. When two heavyweights are throwing haymakers, the referee has to be close enough to see everything clearly, but ready to jump in and stop the action at a split second's notice. That takes incredible courage and reflexes. And it's not just accidental contact they have to worry about. Referees deal with fighters who are pumped full of adrenaline, sometimes on the edge of a mental breakdown, and occasionally just plain crazy. They're the ones who have to get between 250-pound monsters and tell them to stop fighting. The fact that referee violence is so rare is actually a testament to how professional these officials are. For every story of a referee throwing hands, there are thousands of incidents where they showed incredible restraint under extreme pressure. The most controversial cases. Not every case of referee violence is clear-cut self-defense. Some incidents have sparked major debates about where the line should be drawn. Take the case of referee Danny Williams, not the heavyweight boxer, in a 2016 amateur boxing tournament in Detroit. During a heated bout, one fighter's corner started arguing with Williams about a knockdown call. The argument escalated, and Williams ended up in a shoving match with the fighter's trainer. Security footage shows Williams throwing the first punch, dropping the trainer with a clean right hand. Williams claimed the trainer threatened him and reached for something in his pocket. The trainer claimed he was just gesturing and never threatened anyone. The Boxing Commission reviewed the footage for months. Some members wanted to ban Williams for life. Others argued he acted in self-defense based on a perceived threat. The final decision, a 2-year suspension and mandatory anger management classes. Williams never returned to officiating. He now works as a boxing trainer and says he doesn't regret his actions. In that moment, I felt threatened, he told a local newspaper. I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. The international perspective. Different countries handle referee violence very differently. In Japan, where respect for authority is deeply ingrained in the culture, attacking a referee is seen as one of the worst things a fighter can do. The social shame alone is often worse than any official punishment. In Brazil, where emotions run high and fighting is deeply personal, referee violence is more common but also more accepted. Brazilian fans understand that sometimes things get heated, and as long as nobody gets seriously hurt, it's just part of the game. Russia takes a completely different approach. Russian combat sports have a long tradition of referees who can handle themselves physically. It's almost expected that if you're going to referee in Russia, you better be able to back up your authority with your fists if necessary. The most extreme example might be in some parts of Eastern Europe, where underground fighting circuits operate with minimal oversight. In these environments, the referee is often just the toughest guy available, and fighting is part of the job description. The technology solution. Modern technology is starting to change how referee violence is handled. High-definition cameras capture everything from multiple angles, making it easier to determine who was at fault in any altercation. Some promotions are experimenting with body cameras for referees, giving officials an extra layer of protection and providing clear evidence if accusations are made. Others are using advanced audio systems that allow referees to communicate with security instantly if a situation starts getting out of hand. Virtual reality training is also becoming more common, allowing referees to practice handling volatile situations in a safe environment. They can experience realistic scenarios where fighters or corners become aggressive and learn how to de-escalate without anyone actually getting hurt. But at the end of the day, technology can only do so much. Combat sports are about human emotion, adrenaline, and split-second decisions. There's no app for handling a 250-pound fighter who's lost his mind and wants to take it out on the referee, the future of officiating. So where does this leave us? Are we going to see more referee violence as combat sports continue to grow, or will better training and technology make these incidents a thing of the past? Honestly, it's probably going to be a bit of both. As combat sports become more mainstream and more money gets involved, the pressure on referees is only going to increase. Higher stakes mean higher emotions, and higher emotions mean more potential for things to go wrong. But at the same time, athletic commissions are taking referee safety more seriously than ever before. Better training, better support systems, and better security measures are making it safer for officials to do their jobs. The key is finding the right balance. Referees need to maintain their authority and ensure fighter safety, but they also need to protect themselves. Sometimes that means fighting back, and sometimes it means knowing when to call for help. Conclusion: respect the zebras. Here's the bottom line. Referees are human beings doing an incredibly difficult job under extreme pressure. They're not perfect, and sometimes they make mistakes, but the vast majority of them are dedicated professionals who genuinely care about fighter safety and the integrity of the sport. The next time you're watching a fight and feel like screaming at the referee, remember these stories. Remember that the person in the ring or cage with those fighters is someone's father, someone's husband, someone who's just trying to do their job and go home safely to their family. And if you're a fighter reading this, remember that the referee isn't your enemy. They're there to protect you, even if it doesn't always feel that way in the heat of the moment. Treat them with respect, and they'll do everything they can to give you a fair fight. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. Fighters, referees, fans, and everyone else who loves combat sports. The moment we forget, that is the moment the sport loses something essential. So the next time you see a referee step into the ring or cage, give them a little respect. They're putting themselves on the line just like the fighters, and sometimes they have to fight back to protect themselves and maintain order. And hey, if nothing else, these stories prove that you should never mess with a referee. They might just surprise you with how hard they can hit back. What do you think? Have you ever seen a referee lose their cool at a live event? Drop your stories in the comments below and let me know which of these incidents shocked you the most. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the wild world of referee violence, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because trust me, we've got plenty more insane combat sports stories coming your way. Until next time, keep your hands up and your respect for referees even higher.